So I'm gonna be honest. If you say you're ride or die, in my head, I think, oh, you'll tolerate struggle love. Because to me, there is something very long-suffering and very painful within their relationship. The wife we're discussing on today's Wifey Wednesday is the type of ride or die that should actually be the standard. And I think honestly and truly, because of her advocacy and because of how hard she wrote for hers, that is why her wife is where she is today. Today's Wifey Wednesday, in the middle of She Stood Beside Him week, is about Cherelle Griner, the dedicated wife of Brittney Griner. So Wifey Wednesday is our chance to celebrate the very supportive wife of a very famous and prominent figure. And that's because one, that wife usually has a part in the success of said famous spouse, but then also two, that wife has her own life and accomplishments that should be celebrated just as much. So Cherelle and Brittney met in college. They both went to Baylor in Texas for undergrad. Brittney was a poli-sci major, and I read something that said that they dated briefly in college, but I'm not sure how true that is. Brittney, or BG as she's commonly known, started dating Cherelle after her marriage to Glory ended. They got engaged August 2018 and got married July 2019. So going back to February 22, Brittney plays for the Phoenix Mercury, but also in the off season she would play for a Russian basketball team. The reason for that is because the WNBA does not pay nearly as much, so a lot of players would actually go overseas to supplement their income. Quick side note, this just highlighted the disparities between the WNBA and the NBA and how women are usually getting paid less than men for doing the exact same thing. Let's carry on. But the night before, Brittney was stressed because she didn't want to go back there, and Cherelle comforted her and was like, let's just make this your last year. You'll be fine. The next morning, Cherelle's just expecting, I'm gonna wake up and I'm just gonna get texts like, hey, I made it, blah, blah, blah. But no, her phone was blown up. BG was texting her like, they're arresting me. Cherelle's trying to figure out like, wait, what's going on? The rest of us would not know what actually occurred until weeks later. But when Brittney touched down at the airport, she was arrested on drug smuggling charges for carrying a vape pen with hash oil. So as you can imagine, Cherelle went through many emotions in that time. But basically, that would start her advocacy. She would make countless posts informing the public about Brittney's status and would encourage everybody to write her letters to keep her spirits up. Over the course of the, I believe, 10 months she was gone, Cherelle would make appearances all over the press. In May, she went on Good Morning America. By that time, she had spoken to the Secretary of State. She spoke to Angela Rye and said that she had faith that Brittney would be back home. That same month, May 7th, she graduated from law school at North Carolina Central, cum laude. In July, she said, you know what? I was told to be quiet and to let this play out, but no, I'm not doing this anymore because it's been over 140 days and my wife isn't home. And at that time, I believe we saw a true shift about how Brittney's case was being talked about in the media, in addition to how the government was responding to it. On July 6th, she talked to President Biden and Vice President Harris. On August 4th, Brittney was found guilty and sentenced to 9 years in prison. And about a month later, she actually met with President Biden and told him all about Brittney, but also had the opportunity to learn more about what the United States was doing to get her home. On November 1st, she made an appearance on The View. But right after Thanksgiving, but right before Christmas, on December 8th, the news came out that Brittney was coming home in exchange for an arms dealer. Cherelle thanked the Biden administration for making her family whole again, but also vowed to continue to fight for other families to be united as well. So I don't know about y'all, but to me, that is the actual definition of ride or die, because literally her wife's well-being was at stake. So what did you think about this week's Wifey Wednesday? What did you know? What didn't you know? Don't forget to follow here and on IG. We're also headed to the Tube of You soon, so don't you worry, you'll always have your fix. Also, it's not a bruise. It's almost 6 a.m. and I wasn't putting makeup on. Don't forget to go back and watch all the old videos that you've missed. And don't forget to come back tomorrow for another episode from the She Stood Beside Him series of I'll Tell You What, brought to you by Hueido.